Welcome to the podcast that buffs your Hearthstone game. This is Velen's Chosen.
Not all who wander are lost.
Greetings, Visionaries. Welcome to Velen's Chosen, the podcast geared to buff the Hearthstone game of any and all listeners. We help you stay competitive on the ladder, especially in Standard, without breaking your bank. We help talk gameplay, deck construction, and arena skills occasionally to make you a better player and accomplish your Hearthstone goals regardless of your card pool. I'm your host, RobMay, and joining me from Canada, we have Evemartyn. What's up, Eve?
For the visual listeners, they can clearly see your awesome shirt.
I was doing some pretty amazing shenanigans in the pre-show, so if you guys want to, head over to our YouTube channel, shameless plug, and go check it out. And we have
it's awesome. It looks
Andrew
great.
Brown in his new residential area of Oklahoma. What's up, Andrew?
So good to be back. And hey, I got to say real quick that you guys forged through during a tough week for all of us, it sounded like. So
Yeah.
proud of you guys for keeping it going, and thanks for keeping everything on lock so I could get my life together, basically.
Unlock. Yeah. Speaking of, Andrew, why don't you tell the listeners what you normally do in the post-show with your dog and how that situation has improved, like having the new backyard and stuff.
Yeah, so we've got this puppy who is just over a year, and you wouldn't know it because she acts like she's maybe 2 weeks or something like that. But she's very high energy. She's a little lab mutt something, I don't know, but she's just got all the crazy energy in the world. We were living on the second floor of an apartment, and so that was hard for her in this little deep place. And we just started renting a house, and we have more room than we know what to do with. We've always lived in these little bungalow apartments, and now we've got a few bedrooms and stuff, and we have a backyard for her.
The brown bungalows.
Yeah, she's got this little backyard that is her own personal dog park, and she literally loses her mind. She turns into a different dog back there, and she's just biting every stick and rolling around. The previous tenants to us left a couple soccer balls out there, and we found out she loves those things, so we go out there and kick the soccer balls around. She runs forever until we tell her, okay, we're done with this. So
That's great.
That's
much better living situation for us, and we've got baby coming in less than a month now, which is nuts.
Oh my god.
High five.
So we're psyched for all of that, but it was a big move and a good one to set us up for the future. So
Awesome. I'm finally on the upswing of this sickness. Yeah, I'm finally on the upswing of this stupid sickness, guys. I've been through, since our last viewing, I have been through 6 tissue boxes. So, yeah, basically one a day. And
the sickness metric.
my spirit animal is Mucinex anti-decongestant and Ricola lemon mints. So that has been my lifestyle the last couple weeks. Eve, what's been going on in your life? We haven't really
I
done
threw out
this
my
on the show
back,
before.
so yeah,
Oh,
that's a fun thing that happened to me. A lot of extra strength back medicine and Tylenol 3s and hot water bottles and ice packs. Yeah. I feel like an old person.
Freeze for 20,
that's
off
the
for 20,
experience
hot
now.
for 20, right?
But on Hearthstone, on the Hearthstone side of things, I made it up to 7 and then back down to 8 and then back up to 7 and back down to 8. So it's just been 7, 8, 7, 8, 7, 8.
Those
just
walls.
Can't get up
Welcome to the
6.
Hearthstone roller coaster with your host Cthulhu.
Something
And
like
Marino
that.
Jackson.
And we've talked about it on the show before. Those different walls on the ladder are just stifling. And I've been in the same place. I finally hit rank 5 with the deck we're going to talk about today. But man, I have been waffling between rank 4 and 6 like crazy. And I've been switching decks. I've been, I will ride a deck all the way up to rank 4, and then I'll ride it all the way down to rank 6. So I'm like, I don't know if that deck is actually good or not, because exactly 50%. I need 51% if I want to get higher. So
Right.
Sometimes it really seems like the luck of who you get matched up with, right? Because each of these decks has really quite a few decks that they're strong against. But if you get matched up against the ones that they're weak against over and over and over again, and then you get bad draws, and it just seems like luck, like so much bad luck.
And it is a card game, so luck is a part of that game. So you just have to roll with it. Like, I don't have unending time like some of these pros and streamers to get legend. So I have to be okay with the fact that I might never be legend. But one of these days, maybe I'll hit a lucky streak with that crazy deck. And just have fun in the meantime. Have fun.
Rogue is super strong. That's what I have to say. Now? Every time I go up against a rogue, they
Everybody
beat
else's
my
rogue
butt.
is
I don't think I've beat a rogue yet. Like even when I was playing Aggro Shaman and I got the God draw, and I got like all the cards that I wanted, I still couldn't beat them.
They must have gotten a God draw too, because that's actually a good matchup for you.
Right.
But
well, that's how frustrating it is when you're playing a really fast, aggressive deck and you get all the cards you need. And you still don't win. It's just like, I give up.
Yeah, all right.
So let's get into the discount deck of the week, and we'll talk some more about other stuff that we're playing this week afterwards. So here we go.
What a contraption.
Isn't she scrumptious? She's my revolutionary, non-pollutionary mechanical wonder.
Andrew, kick us off, Broseph.
It's Miracle Rogue. So, old school deck, if you've only been playing the game for a little bit, this deck has not been around for the past, I want to say year?
Yeah.
Maybe 6 months. But this was a deck back in the day that was massive. In fact, Gadgetzan Auctioneer had to get nerfed because it was so powerful. But apparently,
and Leroy Jenkins.
And Leroy, that's right. But apparently they're going to get nerfed again because Miracle Rogue is for real right now. So like I said earlier in the show, I rode this one probably from rank 8 or 7 up to 5. And it came in as a tier 1 deck on Tempo Storm's meta report. So right now it's a really good deck to ladder with, and I think the biggest thing with Rogue is that it's frightening to a lot of people because it's a complicated class. Unlike a few other classes that are a little simpler, Rogue, it's not so clear on every turn what exactly you need to do. But I will tell you that I have never played as much Rogue as I have right now. And to put it in perspective, every other hero in my game is level 60 except for Rogue, but I am only 5 levels away now from getting my Rogue done. So so that it's my least played class, but lately this deck has made it really viable, and it's really not too complicated. So we'll talk gameplay so you have an idea of what to do with the deck. But do we want to run through this deck list real quick?
Yeah, sure. While you're running through it, I'm gonna put it on the screen here. So I'm working on that while you're for our viewers actually that are watching.
So and I'm gonna read through my latest one. It's I know it's really close. It might be a little bit different, but I've got 2 backstabs, 2 preparation, 2 cold blood, 2 conceal, 1 deadly poison, 2 eviscerate, 2 sap, 1 shiv. Blood Mage Thalnos, 2 Fan of Knives, a Shadow Strike, or an Earthen Ring Farseer, the Edwin Van Cleefster, 2 SI7 agents. By the way, is there any lore connecting him with Agent 46 in Overwatch or anything?
No. Completely different.
I don't know. There might be
Completely
something.
Different.
2 Tomb Pillagers, 0 Poisoned Mind, 2 Azure Drakes, Leroy Jenkins, and 2 Gadgetzan Auctioneers. So let's get it out of the way. There is no replacement for Gadgetzan Auctioneer. That's your core. That is the key to this whole deck.
That's like the mysterious challenger of Secret Paladin.
Yeah, exactly. So
Same
I know we said that we really want to stay away from saying there's no replacement, but he's the entire mechanism of a Miracle Rogue. The miracle of Miracle Rogue is putting down Gadgetzan Auctioneer and cycling through so many cards that it's a miracle you've been able to, just get through stuff. So yeah, that's the backbone of why Rogue can be hard to play for a lot of players, is because their spells tend to stack off of each other. So preparation is a card that, again, there's no substitute for, and it's important. So hopefully you've got two of those from Classic. But playing that enables you to play any other spell for 3 mana less. And if you're able to play both of those on top of a Gadgetzan Auctioneer, you could be turn 6, Gadgetzan, Prep, Fan of Knives, and you just drew 2 cards on top of dealing, actually 3 cards, because Fan of Knives gives you a card also, and dealt 1 damage to your opponent's board, which if that's a zoo clear or something like that, that's a huge swing for the game. Massive.
Ideally, what I've found when I've been playing this deck, I haven't played a whole lot, and Andrew's definitely our specialist this week for this one, but I've found that you don't want to play Auctioneer unless it's turn 7, and you have both Prep and Backstab in your hand.
It really depends, and this you never want to play a naked Auctioneer. What I mean by that is just turn 6, Auctioneer, and turn.
And that's it, yeah.
You typically want to conceal. The reason conceal's in this deck is so that your Gadgetzan is practically guaranteed to make it to the next turn. Now, your opponent can pull some shenanigans with Shadow Flame or Sylvanas or stuff like that, and they will gladly steal your Gadgetzan if they can. But typically, you don't just want to you never want to just throw him down. You want some kind of guaranteed value, and if you can, you want to guarantee that he'll make it at least to the next turn. So the way that a game typically plays for you is in the first 3 turns, you're trying to just control the board. So you want to use some of your spells like Backstab, your Dagger, maybe a Sap or a Shiv. Your Shadow Strike usually gets used around then. To just keep the opponent's board as clear as you can. Now, that's obviously most difficult when you're up against Zoo or when you're up against mid-range Shaman, which, what the heck, they can just create 7...
Snowball.
Yeah, 7 totems on 1 turn, it feels like. I get so frustrated against that. But with almost any other deck, you can usually do 1 card for 1 card and keep them pretty clear. Turns 3 and 4, you'll start trying to use your SI7 agents, and even just playing a Tomb Pillager on turn 4 is really strong. Getting that 5 damage to your opponent's face, forcing them to deal with it, and getting a coin from it is fine. And then I really like Zeril because the 1-cost spells that you get off of him can proc with Gadgetzan Auctioneer later, or they can help you a little bit to push, for a better board clear. You get that deal 2 damage Toxin with an Azure Drake on board. All of a sudden it's deal 3 damage, and you just got a really cheap way to guarantee that you've got control of the board. So,
sure.
And then you start your shenanigans with Gadgetzan turns 6 to 8, pretty much. If you can get him on the board for 2 turns, you really want him to be on the board, and then turn 7, you've got 7 mana to use for whatever you want, and that's just like a kid in a candy store.
Yeah.
I get to do whatever I want. I'm going to draw my whole deck, and the idea is by the end, you want to have Leroy and 2 Cold Bloods in hand, and then you can push for 14 damage on the drop of a dime, which is super, super powerful. But you might even have Gadgetzan, you might have an Eviscerate in hand, you might have something to give you that extra push to continue.
Okay, so let's talk cards, right? So that is the main win condition for Miracle, ideally. But the best part about Miracle is the main win condition is never, I guess this is best part about every good deck out there, is that the main win condition is not the only win condition. So the alternative win conditions actually represent themselves with how you can play your Violet Teachers, your spell damage cards, Blood Mage Thanos or Azure Drakes, and how you can pull off a massive Edwin when you don't draw your Auctioneers.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, and in fact,
so Andrew, why don't you break those down?
Yeah, and then conceal.
Oh yeah. Conceal.
Yeah, don't be afraid. If you're it's not crazy to be able to get like a 10-10 Edwin on turn 4 or 5, and if you can get him down and then conceal him so your opponent can't deal with him, if they don't have a taunt, you get 10 damage, and that's totally worth it. So
and even if they have a taunt, you have Sap.
Yeah,
exactly.
Sap is the most busted card in Rogue.
Oh my god.
And the other thing that I've done, I remember one game where I actually played Leroy Jenkins on turn 6, I think, or maybe turn 5, and I had a coin from a Pillager.
Okay.
Because I had nothing else in hand, but I knew that I could get some damage, and then I could conceal Leroy.
Yeah.
And then that's 12 damage. And I think I had a Cold Blood in my hand that I used the next turn, so that's more. So there's a few different ways that you can push for damage. You have to be sneaky, and you have to kind of think outside the box. There's quite a few people playing this on Twitch also. If you just search for Rogue, or watch some gameplay videos of like Ryzen, he's a really good Rogue player.
Super
Dog
JJ.
Yes, those are some really good streams to watch or YouTube videos to watch, because Rogue is one of those classes that, like I said, doesn't necessarily come naturally to a lot of people. So you have to hear the way they're thinking, or at least challenge yourself as you watch them play to say, now, why did they think that was the best? Are they setting up for something next turn?
Yeah.
Or are they guaranteeing that their opponent can't do something? It's really, really good.
Yeah.
Well, this is why I think that Blizzard's going to keep Miracle Rogue around for longer, because it's one of those cerebral decks, like kind of like Patron Warrior was, where the barrier for you playing it well is actually pretty high. It's not something anyone can just copy paste and win with. So I think they're okay with there being these really powerful decks because they're very difficult to play properly and to do well with.
I will say that this list specifically is a lot more brainless than previous Miracle Rogues, because they haven't always run like the Leroy and the Cold Bloods. And I know a lot of pros get really upset when they get blasted for, I think you said it was 22 damage is kind of what you can pull off, Rob.
Yeah, it's the 14 to 22 damage is your zone that you want to avoid.
I mean, that's really hard to play against. So, protecting yourself from that much damage, it feels like, okay, anyone can kind of do that,
Yeah.
But that's like the God draw, right? That's
Sure,
also the best case scenario, which a lot of different decks have a lot of damage if they have the God draw.
Well, I mean, the problem is they just have so much good removal and early. Like, if you sap a 7/7 when Shaman drops it, they're still overloaded for 2. A lot of times they can't play it. So sapping stuff like that, or sapping 4 drops is fine. You get the Deadly Poison, or your backstabs and your fan can clear a lot of what Zoo's trying to accomplish in those early turns. And if you survive to like turn 3 or 4, dropping a Tomb Pillager and an SI7 agent is something that your opponent has to deal with. And then if you're not drawing your Gadget Zans, a lot of times you can just Cold Blood your Violet Teacher tokens and win. So the deck is super versatile.
Well, what are the bad matchups, Andrew? Like when you're going up against things on ladder, what are your It's
really interesting because experientially, it's been very different from what Tempo Storm says. So Tempo Storm puts Aggro Shaman and Tempo Warrior as the worst matchups for Miracle Rogue, which I definitely agree with Aggro Shaman, because the whole idea, like I said, if your opponent can just flood the board, that's really hard to deal with. And my most difficult matchups have been Zoo and the new Hunter that's been going around.
Mid-range Hunter?
We'll talk about that in a little bit.
I don't know if it's technically a mid-range, because it plays a little bit different. But it's just it's the ones that are running huge toads and obviously 2 Call of the Wilds, because that card
Tundra Rhino, double deadly shot.
Tundra Rhinos,
you can kill them while they're stealthed and stuff. It's really,
by the
really
way,
nice.
and I will say that card, Deadly Shot, is actually the reason why I've had such a hard time with Miracle Rogue against it, because typically you'll only have one minion on board, like an Azure Drake or a Tomb Pillager, and the fact that for 3 mana they can just destroy it is really, really strong. So those were the hardest ones, and the ones I came up most against. It does really well against like the N'Zoth Paladin or even like Reno Lock
and Priest, right? You can pretty much just destroy Priest. Yeah.
The thing is, those decks that want to react to you, you're not going to do anything. There's sometimes when you're just daggering up for a couple turns and hitting their face and daggering up again, and you're just stalling until you can Gadget Zan, fill up your hand with exactly what you need, and just destroy them. So, and I know, Eve, you were saying that this is a really tough deck to go up against lately for you, right?
Yeah, well, I was playing Dragon Priest against it, and I'm putting down, a strong minion every turn.
Yeah.
And they just deal with it. And another strong minion, and they just deal with it. And that's how Priest generally works, is making like a really good value play each turn, and then they just get rid of it. And then when I taunt up to try and prevent lethal, they just sap.
Sap it, yep. And it's
when
really
I put down
strong.
something that I want them to remove, like dragons. Then they just sap them and don't deal with them.
And I know we've talked about this before, but it actually happened just before we started recording on this show. I found this Reno Cthulhu deck that I really liked, and I played a game real fast, and it was against a Miracle Rogue. I was like, great, we're talking about this, and I'm going to lose to this deck. And it actually was really close, but because I've played this deck so much, I knew exactly what he was trying to do, and I was able to set myself up. Even though he got a Gadget Stand up, I was able to silence it. I was able to clear his board with some Shadow Flame shenanigans and Reno, and I got plenty out of range and was able to kill him pretty easily. Because the big weakness to this deck is it has no healing. So something like a N'Zoth Paladin or a Reno Lock, the thing it has against it is that they can delay the game if they can really get those mid-game turns correct. And it takes some luck, but it also takes some thinking about what are they trying to play, because, like I said, there's one way that you want to play this deck and win. So you know what they're going for. They might try an alternative if they don't get the right hand, but you know exactly what they want the board to look like, and so you can kind of mess with them a little bit.
And if you've
and that's another good reason to play it, right, is to get inside its head. Even if it's not your favorite thing and you don't want to play it on ladder, you need to learn how it works, so when you come up against it, you know how they're going to play.
And that's exactly why we've included it in this week's episode. You're going to see this deck a lot, and so we want to make sure that you guys are prepping it, not just if you're seeing it on ladder, but you're seeing it in tournaments. You kind of understand how it's operating.
Wait. Are you saying they should do some preparation?
Andrew.
Is that...
Kill me, Smalls.
Come on. But it really is a fun deck, and if you're like me and you've struggled with getting, leveling up with the class or getting, some wins in ranked, it is really, really strong. And it actually is fun to play. It's a very different kind of deck. We've added some substitutions that I can go over those, really fast. But because there are a few legendaries, don't be scared with Leroy. You can pretty much get anything with charge. I thought of South Sea Deckhand and Wolf Rider. But Rob mentioned Argent Commander and Argent Horse Rider, which are both great alternatives also. Why don't you talk about
let me talk about that real quick before we get to Zeril. Because Zeril's a little bit easier to understand, but the reason that Argent Commander, which is a 6-mana 4/2 charge with Divine Shield that is a rare, and Argent Horse Rider is a common that is a 2/1 with the same card text. The reason that these are good alternatives with lower charge attack levels and or what would you say, like mana costs are also kind of high. These are really good because they work similar to Leroy without the drawback, and they actually are way better when you can conceal them. Like, if players are playing lots and lots of board clears to kill a concealed, whatever, with Shadow Flame, with Demon Wrath, with Hellfire, with Consecrate, with Equality, these guys last for 2 turns regardless of what removal because of Divine Shield. And
if they've got a Shadow Flame or Fan of Knives or something.
So they have to burn 2 board clears to kill this, even if you've already cold-blooded it. So you can actually go all in with those kind of cards.
And that's good to have as a backup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's just what I wanted to say there.
Sure, but I do want to hear you explain I've seen a couple of lists that instead of Zeril, they're running Violet Teacher, which is fine. But you mentioned to me before the show that you were talking about Journeying from Below as a really good card. Tell us again why that is.
Okay, so I was talking, actually, this is a little bit bleeding into our news section, but during the preliminaries, when I was able to get my Power Core card back for just going to the side events, I didn't really know if any pro players would show up to the eBash location in Indianapolis, but Tempo Storms Just Saying was there, and I actually got a chance to talk with him and ask him about his lineup and what he's targeting, what he's banning, and he's like, well, if I'm doing this, I'm going to bring Miracle because I'm banning... I don't want to give away his strategy. That's basically what I'm getting at, but he's like, about Miracle, I asked him why he has Journey Below, and he's like, well, I don't run Zeril, and I'd rather have the Shiv for an extra card. So basically, Zeril functions as giving you 2 different options, potentially could get you to draw a second card, like 1 in 4, or 1 in 5, however many poisons, and then he gives you a second card that you can also play and draw with the Miracle list, and it only costs 1 mana. Well, Sayan's counter argument to this was, why not play a card like Journey Below or Shiv, because Shiv will do 1 damage. It will always do the same thing. You don't have to wait for the RNG. It will always draw you a second card, and you only spend 2 mana for it. So it's essentially the same thing as Zeraul. It's just you don't have the random factor for the stealth or the bounce back or the 2 damage or the buff for 3 attack or the draw a card. Right?
It's really interesting. Yeah, and
Or the body.
Or the body, right.
I never would have thought of it, but it is a really good replacement.
And then the other side was Journey from Below, and I don't know if this is necessarily a replacement for Zeraul. I just put it here because it's the only place I could fit it in our show notes that made sense.
Sure.
But like, Journey from Below is that 1 mana card where it's okay to play on turn 1 if you have crappy hand, and it's also really good to save for when you have the Auctioneer. And the reasoning behind it is a lot of times because of how Discover mechanics work and giving you a Death Rattle minion, that Journey from Below can represent a card drawn plus another Zeraul if you're already running Zeraul. It could also represent getting an Undercity Huckster that gives you a card from your opponent, and it can also represent a Tomb Pillager, which is arguably your best card to get out of it, and give you that extra body early, and you're already running 2. So having 3 Tomb Pillagers in Rogue is really good.
Not bad. Yeah. I like it.
Good argument.
If you don't have Edwin, you can try out some Questing Adventure, which actually
Was
some people have
original
been
vanilla, right?
testing with. Yeah, but here's actually, I just thought of this, but why Questing Adventure might actually be a better pick than Edwin. There are actually times, even though you get the better buff off of cards with Edwin, there are times when I play Edwin, but I want to conceal my board, and I cannot do that because I want to get the maximum value out of, or I don't get value out of a conceal after I play Edwin.
Right.
Did I just lose you guys?
No, I know what you mean. Yeah, because you have to play it after you play him, so he's not getting buffed by
I think I
it.
did.
Oh, he can't hear us.
Sorry about that. Sorry about that. I can't hear you, Rob.
I can't hear Rob either.
Okay.
Are you muted or something? I can hear Andrew, but I can't hear Rob.
Likewise.
Can't hear you.
Go back or if you want to listen to what I said, or the link to the deck list on our show notes has a guide.
The video? Yeah, I watched it.
Yeah. You did, or not the video, the deck list that I posted. It has a written guide also, so you can read through that. I forgot to mention that deck list. Somebody got top 5 on EU Legend with it, so it's obviously really strong.
It's one of those things that rewards a really cerebral player, you know?
Yeah.
Those people that want to have to like really think through every turn.
Yeah. And it does take some getting used to, but it's really not that bad. And yeah, I'm not a legend player or I play.
I think you're selling
every
yourself
second of
short,
every day.
honestly, because getting to rank 4 is huge.
It,
I think if
yeah,
you can
it
get
is.
to rank 4, you can get to rank legend, honestly.
At some point, hopefully.
Yeah, I
I
don't
don't
agree
feel
with you.
Oh, there you are.
Yeah, I don't know
I just
why
can't
my
see-
video is not working, but we'll just have to go with it for the remainder of the episode.
Okay.
So, is that pretty much everything that we wanted to talk through for Rogue?
If I can jump back in and just say that the questing adventure thing, and I've got just a couple more things, and then we can move on.
Yeah.
Cool.
Sounds good.
All right. So, if you don't have Edwin, there's questing adventure, which I know is almost like a joke sometimes, but some players have actually been experimenting with this card lately. And there's one situation that I found that actually you would rather play questing adventure than Edwin. Because you obviously get more value out of each card with Edwin, but when you're trying to conceal your board, you actually want to play the minion first and then play conceal. With questing adventure, you get the bonus off of playing a card with the adventurer, and you conceal him. With Edwin, you have to sacrifice one card that could, add the +2/+2 for him. You just have to get him on the board and then conceal him. So it's really not that big of a deal, but yeah, have fun with questing adventure because that card shouldn't be playable, and yet it kind of works with Rogue since you're playing so many cards.